been discovering a bit more about IchigonQuest over the last few days. Just to recap, what I've got here is a V1 BBC microbit, and it's just connected up to two resistors, which go to the composite video input on a TV set, and that's producing the video signal. It's also connected to an old PS2 keyboard that I just happened to find in the street, and that's pretty much about it. I've wired up an LED to GPIO, one of the GPIO pins, to pin 0, just to prove that you can turn the GPIOs on and off. And I have added a piezoelectric kind of buzzer since the last time we looked at this, so it does kind of beep now. And before we looked at things like the practice programs you can do. Instructions or commands in Ichigon Go are called spells. And for example, we can put the LEDs on. So if I put that on, you should see all the LEDs on the microbit should light up. There we go. And I can turn them off and they go off again. And I can navigate through to output, and I can put output 1 on, which should turn the LED on here. It's not very bright, but you can see if I put that on, there we go, the LED goes on. I can turn it off again. So you can also use the draw command. Oh, there's a beep. Beeps very quietly, but it does beep. And you can take some readings from some of the sensors on the microbit, and you can draw pictures on the microbit's LED display. So that's the practice mode. I've been doing a little bit more with journeys. This is like the programming mode. And I've made a couple of programs. And the first program, well, I'll just run it and see if you can work out what it does. So if I run it, it's drawing a boat across the screen. It's beeping as it goes, and then actually when it gets to the end of the first line, it will move down and it will go across the next line. So it's very slow. It will make its way from the top of the screen right eventually down to the bottom of the screen. Let's have a little look at how the program works. It's actually not really that much like BASIC, which is what I thought it would be like. It's kind of almost more like assembly language, and I'll explain why in a moment. You have got in the Ichigon Go kind of universe, as well as places to put your journeys, which are made up of spells, you've got these items over here. Now, the items are kind of like registers in assembly language or in a CPU. That's what you have instead of variables, and you kind of have to shuffle things around and be a bit imaginative. So let's have a look at how this program works. So I'm using two of these items. I'm using box A and box number, and that's a kind of special one. We'll look at why that's special in a moment. And I set those to 0. I clear the screen, and then I'm setting the place of the cursor to be the coordinates that are held by those variables, and then printing my boat. I'm beeping, and then I'm incrementing the contents of the box hash, which is kind of like the accumulator. It's a kind of a special box, I think, really. And then if that box is bigger than 32, I'm going to jump to line 11. And this is why I think it's a bit like assembly language programming. You can't branch in the normal way. You've only got very limited branching capabilities. It's a GOIF statement, really. You can only branch if things are true or not true. So it's a bit like, for example, in 6502 assembly language, the branch not equal instruction. So if it's bigger than 32, I'm going to jump to step 11, where I'm going to reset the x coordinate back to 0, increment the y coordinate by 1, and then carry on. So that's the kind of logic that makes that work. Let's have a look at another program. This journey here, journey number 1, clears the screen. I'm using 4 different boxes or 4 different registers or variables, and this time I'm using one of them to generate a random number. And I've discovered that to generate a random number between a certain range, or between 1 and a certain number, you have to put that number in a box, and then you call the random command for that box, and then it puts the result in box hash. So let's have a look. Let's run the program and see what it does. So what it does is it plots a star at a random position on the screen. So I'm shuffling all those boxes or registers around to generate different random numbers in different ranges. So I think it's about 30 across and maybe about 20 lines down. I find this strangely soothing and hypnotic. Just watching this, wondering where the last star is going to go. Where is the last gap going to be? The little holes that appear, they look a little bit like houses or like bigger stars. And it's very, very soothing, very relaxing. And it just sort of takes me back, really. This is the kind of program I probably would have written on a Commodore PET back in the late 70s, just playing around with the screen or drawing stars at random by drawing full stops at random coordinates on the screen. So very simple program. It's not exactly Tetris or Space Invaders, although I think you can create games on Ichigon Go, because there are it does have the ability to read keyboard inputs. We're nearly there. We've nearly got the last one. And it's also an intriguing way to write programs. It's so restricted that most of the keys on the keyboard aren't actually used. You only use the arrow keys and the enter key and the escape key. So there's our final star. There we go. The end.